there's a real good chance that this video is going to save you time, frustration, tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars, and maybe even keep your family together. I'm Bradley Richardson, and this is the Advanced Adulting Podcast. Today, we're going to talk about money and you and your family and what to do when it all goes wrong, because it will eventually. You may think you have a plan. You know, Mike Tyson said, everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth. And unfortunately, life has a way of punching us in the mouth with something that can happen. A parent can, or you can become incapacitated. People can pass away. And that is when the trouble really begins. If you have ever had a friend, or maybe you or someone you know has had a relative pass away and there's siblings and other people involved, boy, it gets ugly fast. And really the only people who benefit from that are attorneys and the court system. Today, we're going to show you how you can avoid that, how you can avoid spending months, even a year in court, how you really can avoid buying that Mercedes for that attorney there, and how you can get money faster for you, your family, and give yourself and your family some peace of mind. My guest is David McAdams. David calls himself a holistic fiduciary, which is really a fancy term for he knows everything about investments, wealth management, estate planning, and what to do when there's a big pivotal life event. His company works with folks all over the nation to help them prepare for such an event. And why is that important? And why are we talking about that today? Because it's easy to think, well, I'm going to go on Rocket Lawyer over here and I'm going to do the will form, or I have an attorney, or my mom or dad has an attorney that has done that. That's about the equivalent of saying, I have keys to a car, I'm ready to go drive NASCAR. You're just getting started. This is going to raise some questions that you probably hadn't thought of before, give you an action plan of what do you need to do to have the conversation with your family, your mom or dad, or even just what you need to do to put an action plan in place for yourself. This is a serious subject that deserves your attention. I'm Bradley Richardson, and this is Advanced Adulting. David McAdams, welcome to Advanced Adulting. I'm excited to talk to you because you cover some very important topics. I mean, they're not terribly sexy. They're not something that everybody naturally thinks about going to, but it's something that almost every single one of us are going to deal with. And that is going to be money, finances, and oftentimes relating to your family and your older parents. What do you think a lot of people get wrong when they're thinking about wills or planning for your parents or even your own finances?
There's a very common misconception that if you have a will, you will avoid the court process called probate, which often ends up having unnecessary court costs and attorney's fees. I'd say it's probably the number one misconception. And the second thing is that even people that have more advanced planning, we find that literally, I say this without reservation, 99% of the time, we find major mistakes that need to be fixed because most attorneys are generalists. And even if you have an estate planning attorney, there are some gaps to perfect that we often find left out.
I think one other thing, and you and I've talked at length about this, is, we think estate planning, we think that, oh, well, do you have it set? And yes, we're going to talk about all the nuts and bolts of what can go wrong. But a lot of people, they think, well, look, I may not have a lot of money. Mom and dad may not have a giant estate. It's not like some significant investments or anything, but really this is something that everybody needs to think of regardless of what you have or think you don't have.
100%. I have 5 boys, and when they turn 18 years old, they have estate planning in place. I like to say whether you're 18 or 118, you need to have your affairs in order. Literally, my 18-year-old had a car accident and was in the emergency room, and I show up and they transferred him to another facility. Legally, they don't even have to tell me where they transferred him. He's an adult.
Right.
And if I don't have a living will or power of attorney in place, I have no authority. So it's a real problem. Whether you're 18 or 118, everyone should have their affairs in order.
Absolutely. I've got grown kids as well. You don't think about that because you think, oh, well, nothing's going to happen to them until it does. And you're right, because legally you're locked out of so many things. And that happens with your children. And then you're the adult child. And it certainly happens with your mom or dad, because so many times you don't think about it until it's that, oh my God, something happened. It's an emergency. What do we do?
Yeah, we have a saying that life happens. You don't plan for these events. People get incapacitated, have car accidents, strokes, untimely deaths.
Mm-hmm.
And one or two things are true. Your affairs are in order or they're
Mm-hmm.
not. And most of the time, they're not. I would say, again, I've been doing this for 30 years.
Right.
And one of the things we'll look at is how assets are titled, how beneficiaries are structured. In 30 years, after meeting with thousands of retirees, I've literally had zero people in 30 years where I did not find a mistake in their beneficiary planning. Money goes
Wow.
to the wrong people. It goes to probate. It gets locked up. It happens all the time. I always find beneficiary mistakes. It's uncanny.
Well, I think it's important too, because you mentioned being incapacitated or hospitalized, and that is whether it's 24-year-old kid or whether it's your 87-year-old mom. That's important. We oftentimes think of this as what happens after they pass. It's an after the fact thing, and
Right.
it's not. So much can happen that you need to know what's going on. You need to be able to make those decisions, have access to funds, everything, while they're still here but incapacitated. Let's talk about this for a second. So, what happens? Now, give me an idea of what happens when someone is incapacitated, dementia, illness, whatever, and there's no paperwork or no plan in place.
I'll give you a great example. I have a client that procrastinated and ignored my advice after 10 years of begging them to get this fixed. They just had better things to do, had to get their hair done or whatever. Um,
Hmm.
when someone's incapacitated, you can actually go to the probate court while a person's living. Most people
Hmm.
think of that, to your point, upon death, going through a will or a probate process. But if you're incapacitated and your parents' affairs are not in order, you would have to go to court and get a conservatorship structured. I know here in
Hmm.
my area,
Hmm.
a uncontested process is going to cost about $7,000 to $10,000 if it's uncontested. But a
Hmm.
lot of parents, their health starts to decline. They have
Right.
cognitive issues, dementia, Alzheimer's, all sorts of issues. If it's contested, get ready to spend $50,000 to $100,000 or more, and get ready to spend weeks and months of your time. The court process requires you to use an attorney in this process, and it's a
Hmm.
very they send people out to your home to interview
Hmm.
you. It's a very extensive process. The courts don't just give you control of someone's affairs because you say they're having some memory issues.
Right.
It's expensive, it's time consuming, it's miserable, and it doesn't have to be that way. We have had a client where they had to have a family intervention because he actually had Alzheimer's, but it wasn't diagnosed. And he started giving 50,000, 100,000. Anyone that called him on the phone, he was sending
Hmm.
checks all over the country for all sorts of scams. And we actually had to have a family intervention. There's probably 8 people in my boardroom.
Hmm.
Um, but he didn't want to give up his affairs. So that was an example of a contested
Right.
conservatorship. It cost him tens of thousands of dollars.
Well, and this is something, again, if someone doesn't have tens of thousands to be able to do that, this is something that just can be taken care of simply beforehand with certain documents and planning and prep, right?
Our firm gives away complimentary financial and healthcare power attorneys and living wills. That's how much we care. I'm very passionate about this topic. But we
Hmm.
do have McAdams Estate Group is one of our 4 subsidiary companies. And we do have an A to Z process in all 50 states. We're going to save people a lot of money from going down to the local law firm if they choose to work with us. But
Hmm.
having said that, estate planning should be easy, very simple, very easy. It should only take a few hours,
Right.
A to Z, and it should be reasonably inexpensive if you are working with the right firm. So we've
Well,
systematized all of our process to make it that way. Nationally,
hmm
we work with attorneys in all 50 states, but it's a
hmm
great process, and we can easily solve those things.
Well, I think that's important to have a system like that because you don't know what you don't know. You've never been, most people have never been through this, and you don't know what to ask. And again, I think the default is, well, I'm going to talk to an attorney. And as you pointed out, I mean, a lot of attorneys are generalists. You just write in the will and that's it. Tell me what's the difference? What's the difference then between an attorney and then bring in a fiduciary or someone on the money side like you and your group?
Yeah, the difference would be like a holistic approach. We call it the 3 blind mice. I meet with people all the time. They've got
Hmm.
a tax person over here. They've got an attorney over here. They got a financial advisor over there.
Hmm.
Literally, in my 30 years of doing this, I can only think of 1 or 2 instances where those people are actually communicating on behalf of their client.
Hmm.
So a lot of our clients in our world, when we do have clients that choose to bring everything under one roof, And then we can consolidate and simplify the planning where the tax planning integrates with the estate planning, which integrates with the investment planning, insurance planning. So there's a holistic approach. The other big disconnect is that most attorneys are generalists. Think of a profession like whether it's accounting or law or medicine. If you had a chest pain,
Right.
would you go to a podiatrist? I mean, they
Right.
both went to medical school, right? They're both
Mhm.
doctors, but they do very different things. The other disconnect is that many estate planning attorneys that are specialists, it's kind of weird questions that they don't ask. One of the huge things we see is probably 99% of the time, if we review a current document, like an existing trust or something like that, we will find that if we ask our client, if you transfer wealth to the children, this will be your audience. Your
Sure.
audience is the kids, right? If they inherit the money, would you want that to be protected from unforeseen divorces and lawsuits, car
Right.
accidents, predators, creditors, bankruptcies? Would you want that protected once the kids get it? Or would you want it unprotected? Most
Mhm.
attorneys don't even ask that question. There's special language that needs to go in the documents
Mhm.
to affect that. And almost 99% of the time, they don't have it. I actually have a good YouTube video on this. I titled
Mhm.
it, Is Your Attorney Ripping You Off? There's actually a business model, believe it or not,
Right.
where I've had dozens of clients here in my area come in and say, oh, we have a trust. And right there at the top of the page, you can't make this up. It says last will and testament. And what they have is
Okay.
something called a testamentary trust, which kicks in
Mhm.
after they die. But
Right.
guess what the problem is? You have
It's
to go
open.
you have to go to probate court first. So the attorney has structured the estate to where the person dies, they
Right.
get to probate the estate, often charging 20, 30, $40,000 or more.
Great repeat business for them, right? But
Yep.
horrible for a client.
I actually talked to an estate planning attorney once, said, how's your business going? And he said, well, just waiting for people to die. And what he meant by that is he makes all his money on the probate process,
Right.
not setting up the inexpensive wills or trusts or power of attorney documents.
Well,
So
that's
it's
good to
kind of
know.
crazy. Watch my YouTube video. It's called Is Your Attorney Ripping You Off?
Okay. Wow. And look, whether someone's intentionally ripping you off or whether it's just, life happens. I mean, I think we talked about an example of, hey, let's say that, protected versus unprotected. Your mom and dad pass away. They might not have had much, but they had a home or they had a piece of property or something like that. And then suddenly, your spouse walks in, says, hey, it's been great, but I'm leaving you for my trainer. And I want that. I get some of that.
Yep.
And that happens more than you can.
We have a complimentary, just free 45-minute web class, and we go through a lot of these issues. But one of the things we talk about is in my 30 years, I've seen millions and millions of dollars go to the wrong people. Now, this
Mhm.
is usually an issue of either bad advice that people have taken from people who don't know what they're talking about, or they read an article there used to be something called a newspaper. They read an
Yeah.
article in the newspaper or Kiplinger's or Forbes, and they went out and implemented partial advice. They put their daughter on the bank account. They quit claimed the house to the kids while they were living. All these are huge mistakes, by the way.
Mhm.
And so they followed some type of partial advice. And in this 45-minute web class, we actually talk about millions of dollars. These are real people, real cases where
Mhm.
they had their affairs structured improperly or they procrastinated. We see it all the time. And it's tragic. It doesn't have to be that way. It's easy to fix.
Why should a child not be on a bank account like that?
So it's a liability issue. It's not about, do I trust my daughter? It's not like, do I think Susie's going to take my money and run off to Mexico? That's not
Mhm.
the issue. Imagine your daughter's on your bank account.
Mhm.
I had a client come in and say, I don't have to worry about probate. I have my daughter jointly titled on everything. I said, is your daughter married? She said, yes. I said, does she drive a car? Yes. Does
Mhm.
she file a tax return? Yes.
Mhm.
Is it possible she could have medical health issues? Sure.
Mhm.
So I said, if she ever gets divorced, car accident, someone's, IRS, health,
Right.
but if someone's ever coming after your daughter and
Yeah.
she's a joint owner on everything you have,
Mhm.
guess who else's money they can come after?
Absolutely. No separation at all there.
It's a
You're
liability issue. It's a huge mistake. And oh, I can avoid probate. I'll just jointly title. Have you ever, Brad, certainly you've seen this. Have you ever seen someone that's trying to fix one problem, but they accidentally create 2 or 3 much bigger problems? My favorite one is like, I'm going to quit claim my house to my kids. That way the nursing home won't get my house, or Medicaid planning or something like that. And that all you're doing basically effectively is avoiding probate court, but you've created 3 massive, huge problems that are much bigger than the probate issue.
Right.
Stop doing these tips and tricks. Just get proper estate planning in place. It's easy. It's inexpensive. It doesn't take a lot of time. Just fix it, for goodness sake.
It's the case of a little bit of knowledge is a dangerous thing.
Yes.
You know, you think you know something, but you're right. You're creating 5 other headaches down the road that you never expected. Because, and again, I think something's important for this audience. We have people of all different backgrounds, incomes, everything. This is not a rich person's problem. It is a problem for everybody.
No.
That's important.
A common misconception is that you have to have a large estate to do estate planning. But as I said, my 18-year-old needs estate planning. It's just, he's not going to go out and get a trust if he doesn't own real estate or any other assets. You know, basic estate planning involves typically 5 or 6 key legal documents that all work together. Some are while you're living, some are after you're deceased, and they work together in a consolidated way. I would say the other big issue is a lot of states have what are called statutory laws, where the attorney gets to charge a percentage of the estate. California, Florida, there's several states. So in California is a great example. It starts at 5%. Imagine you had $1 million piece of property in California. You're starting at 50 grand statutorily, plus additional costs and fees. Okay. But even if you have let's say you live in Tennessee and you have a $150,000 home, you still are going to spend more in probate court and time and wasted time and months dealing with it than if you just structured it to avoid probate and not go through the process at all. Even if you don't have to have a huge estate. No.
Well, it's that. And, you know, I've heard so many stories about, it's not just, hey, what are we going to do with mom or dad's house? You know, that's a significant asset that you have to do something with. But it's look, things happen so quickly. And just even having access to cash or accounts or anything to be able to take care of basic things you need to do, or burying them, even things like that. Let's talk about frozen accounts real quick, because we don't think about that. I mean, what are some basic things that people can do to smartly, intelligently to protect themselves? We're talking about the sandwich generation here. We're not talking about mom and dad. Okay. We want to protect them, but the burden's going to lie on us. What are the kind of the basic bare minimum things we should do?
I mean, it's a good question. You could have someone pass away and not even have the funds available to pay the funeral home. That happens. Statutorily, like here in our area, let's say there's a person who's got an individual bank account, mom, and she passes away, and there's no other planning around that. They're going to, by law, freeze that account for 4 months in our neck of the woods. Every municipality has slightly different laws.
Right.
Then a court is going to have to appoint an executor. A lot of people think, oh, the will says I'm the executor. Nope. That's who mom said they want to be the executor. The court has to prove the will, because there might be 5 wills. She might have scratched out something on her napkin at the hospital. There might be 5 wills. The court has to determine what document am I going to allow to be used as the legal document to settle the estate, who's the executor. And so this is a probate court process. So the money's frozen because they want to know if any creditors could lay claim. There might be a furniture loan or a car loan. Or somebody's coming after the money now. So once this frozen and once the court appoints an executor, then you can finally go through the process of settling the estate, which can take months. And I've even seen years, especially if there's real estate in more than one municipality or more than one state. We have clients, I'm kind of near Mississippi, Arkansas, and Tennessee. We have clients who will own a property in Mississippi or Arkansas. Well, they won't probate the Tennessee home until Mississippi's finished with their probate process.
Wow.
So I see some of this stuff drag out 2 or 3 years and stuff's frozen. So what are some simple things you can do? Here's a cheat code. I don't recommend this. This falls in the category of a little bit of knowledge is a dangerous thing.
Right.
And you don't know what you don't know. But at a bare minimum, to answer your question, if mom doesn't have proper planning in place, do not become a joint owner on the account for the aforementioned reasons. But you could set up what's called a power of attorney. Mom could give you legal authority, open and close bank accounts, write checks, pay bills. She could give you legal power of attorney through a financial power of attorney. And usually about half the time we read power of attorneys, they're missing important language or key phrases. But I digress. You could have a power of attorney, and you could also have something called POD, payable on death.
Right.
So think about it. If mom's incapacitated, she's in a coma, you've got power of attorney while she's living. No court. If she passes away and you're the beneficiary, it's not technically a beneficiary, but it's sort of like having a beneficiary on a bank account. So it's called POD, payable on death. You show up with a death certificate, they can pay out the cash. Now
you have that and you just take it to the bank.
Yeah, now that does correct. You have the death certificate, you show up at the bank, it's payable on death to you. You show your proper identification, easy peasy, no court process, no probate. The problem with POD is there's a lot of things it doesn't solve. I had a client that lived in Texas, and because I've been doing this 30 years, I'm very familiar with state laws all over the country. And she said, well, I don't have probate on my house. In Texas, they allow you to put TOD, transfer on death, on your house. Okay. Would I tell my mom to put TOD on the house? Nope. Because all that will do is eventually avoid probate court on the house, but it doesn't solve the 10 other problems that you're trying to solve with your estate planning, like asset protection from divorces and lawsuits to the kids.
Right.
By the way, Google problems with TOD in Texas. They started their laws in 2015. I know you're originally from Texas, right? So they started their laws in 2015. It has not gone well. It normally takes about 18 months just to get the title insurance moved over so you can, it's a mess. So this goes into, there's some cheat codes to avoid probate, but they're not a good idea. You solved one problem, but you have all these other problems that still need to be fixed and addressed with a proper plan.
Hey, thanks for watching. We're going to get back to the conversation in just a second. But first, I want to tell you about something you really need to know about, especially if you have older parents. I want to tell you about David McAdams and the McAdams Group. Look, 67% of people are one emergency away from an epic financial disaster. And if your parents haven't made a plan or have protections in place, then it's going to be you who it falls upon to deal with and clean up, whether they become incapacitated or long after they're gone. If they don't have a plan, a will, or protections in place, you're going to be dealing with banks freezing accounts, courts making all the decisions for you, fighting with family, months of stress, and thousands in legal fees just to get things sorted out. And that doesn't even take into consideration maybe a year or two down the road, your spouse walks in and says, I'm leaving you for my trainer and I'm taking that piece of property or the house or what little inheritance you got. These things don't have to occur. They're 100% preventable with the right plan. When I heard the term estate planning, first of all, I thought, well, that's something an attorney does. And then I thought, well, estate planning, that's for super rich folks. What if, my parents don't have any money? Well, maybe not, but they might be sitting on that house that's been paid for the past 20 years. It doesn't matter how much money someone has, you still need to protect yourself. And an attorney can do some things, but that doesn't take into consideration the financial side of it all. So that's why you need to contact David McAdams and his folks at the McAdams Group. Anywhere in the country, contact them for a free 15-minute consultation. They're not going to push anything on you, try and sell you on anything. They're just going to help you determine where you and your parents are at, where the gaps are, where you're good, and go from there and give you some options to think about. Contact them at the information below and set up your free 15-minute call that can give you and your parents some peace of mind. Now, let's get back to the conversation. Wow. Let's talk about family dynamics for a second. Because, look, you're talking about an emotionally charged situation, and let's just pour gas on that fire when you put money involved. And what What are some things that you've seen to really establish who's in charge? Mom may say one thing, the siblings are going to fight about it. What are some things that you recommend on handling it when one sibling's the caretaker and others are absent?
Couple things come to mind. First of all, at the front end of the planning process, we don't have discussions around worst case scenarios. So what we ask a lot of what if questions. But
Right.
ideally, you're going to have a primary. You will see some people set up like a co-executor or a co-trustee on a trust.
Mm-hmm.
You can do that. We've seen more problems with that because think about what you're doing. You're giving equal authority to two people, and they
Mm-hmm.
don't always agree.
Oh, right.
So then what happens, right? So we prefer a hierarchy structure. Do it either way, but we prefer a primary and a successor. And sometimes you'll have 4 or 5 people listed.
Mm-hmm.
We all run out of names. It's not uncommon to have what's called a corporate trustee at the end of that, just in case. So one thing you can do is you can start with a good front end planning process. The second thing you can do is estate planning is not an event, it's a journey. Two things change. Your goals can change and laws can change. So at a bare minimum, you should be at
Mm-hmm.
least checking back in every 3 to 5 years. Is what I did still what I want? Have my
Mm-hmm.
goals changed? Or I need to adjust this. It doesn't have to cost a bunch of money. You don't have to
Mm-hmm.
redo everything. But if you've done the proper planning at the front end and you're checking in periodically, that's going to solve a lot of those problems. The other thing that came to mind in terms of the kids and that dynamic you're referring to.
Sure.
We do often see a lot of families disintegrate or fall apart. You'd be surprised. It's usually not over money issues, although it
Mm-hmm.
can be. Think about it. Money's very easy to divide. If I had $100, I could give $2 to Timmy, $17 to Susie, $80 to Mary. I can split up $1 100 different ways. So where we see more families sort of disintegrate or kind of fall apart, it's really in the area of emotional or sentimental items. So
Right.
we give all of our clients a document called a survivor's guide. It's 20 pages. It took me years to perfect. And it's very different than what you typically see, some like online stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
it's going to spell out and deal with a lot of these emotional issues up front. And so getting ahead of it in the planning process, even talking to the kids while they're alive. Hey,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not planning on going anywhere. I could live till I'm 95. I might be here for 20, 30 years. If something ever happens to me, is there anything that you're really emotionally attached to that's sentimental?
What do you do with dissension? You need to sell the house. You need to liquidate things. But one sibling is just adamant. Oh, well, that was our childhood home. We can't sell this. And they put their foot down and gum up the works. How do you deal with that? What can you do to try and circumvent that from happening?
Two things come to mind. One, going back to proper planning on day one, I
Mm-hmm.
beg my clients, wherever possible, do not leave jointly titled real estate to multiple heirs. Just don't do
Mm-hmm.
it. A good friend of mine, his parents did that. They had 40 acres about an hour from here. The sister wanted to keep the property. She didn't
Right.
have children. She could just ride it out for her life. He had
Mm-hmm.
5 kids. He wanted to sell the property. They disagreed. They ended up having to go to court. And
Mm-hmm.
guess who got a ton of the money?
Oh,
Earnings, right? So they fought over it for a long time. They had to administratively decide which 20 acres are you going to get. There's the road frontage, there's the back part. They had to fight over that. It took a couple of years or more. Proper planning, if you don't want your heirs fighting over stuff, don't give multiple people authority. Also, communication up front, explaining, hey, I put Joe in charge and here's why and here's how it's going to work. But to him, that was well worth it to avoid the family infighting.
there's so much about sandwich generation right now. We're feeling pressure from both ways. People who are in your 40s, 50s, and even 60s now, because people are living longer. So you're going to be approaching caring for yourself while you still have a much older parent. What are 3 or 4 things you need to do right now to protect yourself?
Yeah, the first action plans is get your affairs in order. But what does that mean?
Right.
When we meet with someone, I usually have a checklist of somewhere between 10 to 15 major red flags. Of those 15 red flags, 6 or 7 of them are usually related to estate planning. So we're talking about asset titling, beneficiary mistakes, should have financial power of attorneys, healthcare power of attorneys, living wills, advanced medical directives, survivor's guides.
Mm-hmm.
Asset titling is a huge issue. People just run out and jointly title everything, or they put their daughter on the account. So step one is to get your affairs in order. You should talk to a professional.
Right.
This is 100% a situation where I do not recommend you DIY this. You can, but you're just going to be paying someone that's competent to fix it later or problems.
Well, let's be clear. This is not a rocket lawyer, look at a will and that's it and we're set. It's much more complex.
There's online solutions like LegalZoom, trustandwills.com. The problem with that is they are not basically attorney-based processes.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a big time you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
20 years ago, I knew more about estate planning than 99% of the people on the planet. My father-in-law had 2 rental properties. I tried to DIY it to save a little money. Right. After spending 6 hours on a Saturday, I threw the online trust in the trash can where it belonged. And I literally called my father-in-law because we didn't have McAdams estate group at the time.
Right.
I said, there's 2 choices. I said, you can pay the attorney or I'll pay for it because I'm the trustee executor of his estate. I said, you can pay for it or I'll pay for it, but this needs to be done right. And this is not something you want to take a chance with. McAdams estate group would handle it, but you need to work with a specialist. This is a big time. You don't know what you don't know. You're going to make mistakes. In 30 years, I've had people come in, David, all my stuff set up perfectly, I'm sure. I go through it, mistake. Right. So that's the first thing I would say is work with a specialist, not a generalist, and don't try to do it at home. Not important.
Well, it's super important too. And that's one reason I want to talk with you, because you're right. We say a specialist. It's not just the legal end, it's the money end. And I think that's such a big thing. There is the money end of planning this thing, whether you have a lot or a little, not just the legal. And I think if I'm going to hit one thing for this audience, because I hear it time and time again in these conversations, they think it's just the legal and I'm wrapped up, and it's not. It's what bites them into the things that we're talking about today.
Yeah. So the money side's important too, because your parents are, if your parents are retired or close to retirement, they're in what we call the withdrawal phase. Some of them might still be accumulating. They might have a big pension or something, but a lot of them are taking money out or trying to sustain their lifestyle based on their nest egg. There's only 2 ways to get money out of that account. You're either taking from the income or principal. And most cookie cutter models think like, your Fidelity, stock and bond, 60-40. Right. Typical investment solutions don't actually have a lot of income. They're relying on the growth of the investment so that you can take out principal, and hopefully that's going to last 30 years. And we call it the liquidation method. They're actually cannibalizing, they're actually selling shares in many cases. So that's a reason a good estate plan and financial planning, they actually tie together in your tax planning, strategic tax planning, healthcare planning. There's something called IRMAA, IRMAA, that's kind of a penalty on your Social Security income. So all this planning holistically ties in. And one of the biggest things that happens to retirees is they actually run out of money before they run out of life. Studies used to say their number one fear was going to a nursing home. Now that's second. Guess what number one is? Outliving their money. So we have massive longevity risk. Healthcare has improved. They can put stents in you. They can keep you alive for 20 years. You would have died 50 years ago. Now you just keep it living. So we have massive inflation risk, longevity risk, and people are going to need that, make that money last. Most portfolios don't actually drive much true income, which is basically interest and dividends, into the checking account to spend to sustain your lifestyle. Most people are cannibalizing, selling shares, and they're doing it unwittingly. Take a person that's got, just say, $500,000 at a brokerage firm somewhere, and their well-meaning advisor has them in a portfolio that they're hoping grows enough to sustain them. But inevitably, let's say that same person just wants $25,000 a year, a couple $1,000 a month. Okay, that's about a 5% withdrawal rate. If the net interest and dividends are, say, 1%, how are they getting the other 4%? How are they getting $20,000? They're having to sell shares. Now, if we go through a recession like 2008 and the shares are down 50, 60%,
Hmm.
They have to sell 60% more shares to get the same dollar in their bank account.
Right.
I've seen people blow up their entire retirement in 24 months or less by not understanding how to be properly positioned during the withdrawal phase of life.
Mhm.
Getting up Mount Everest is hard. Most
Right.
people actually die on the way down. The
Mm.
people that survive have something called a Sherpa.
Mhm.
You need a guide,
Right.
and it's a lot easier getting up the mountain than getting back down. Your parents are in the part where they're trying to survive and live on this and not run out of
Hmm.
money. It's a huge issue because, again, we don't have a lot of competition. 98% of the models that we come up against don't solve this problem of income.
And it's just going to continue to get worse and worse as the longer we live as well, getting squeezed. How do you have these difficult conversations? What do you recommend to an adult child to ask their parents? Or how do you bring this stuff up without seeming greedy or predatory or, hey, clock's ticking. When are you going to die? It's an uncomfortable conversation.
You have to be, especially with this kind of format. You could say, hey, I attended this web class and they were talking to
Right.
people in my generation that their parents, sometimes they age, their health can decline, they can have cognitive disorders. We all
Hmm.
get older. Hey, there's a free web class that you can attend. And
Hmm.
and I would like you to attend it because, I love you and I want to be able to care for you.
Right.
But what happens is a lot of times when, if you were to have health issues or a car accident or something, now I'm trying to help you, but I might end up having to go to court or
Right.
probate or have to do a conservatorship. I love you. I want to help you. Would you please attend this web class so,
Right.
we can learn together how I
Hmm.
can best help you if your health declines.
I see
Mhm.
so many people who deal with caregiving, just the health side of it. And for their older parents, I mean, it's scary for them. So they kick that can down the road. I don't want to think about this. I don't want to talk about it, but I love how you position that.
Your parents might say, well, I already have a financial advisor.
Right.
Over 95% of the people that engage with us and because of our firm had a financial advisor. The issue is they're not holistic. They've done studies on this, and it's like 93% of financial advisors say they do tax planning for their clients.
Right.
24% of consumers say get tax planning for my financial advisor. There's a massive disconnect. And
Hmm.
most of what that looks like is that three blind mice syndrome where they say, oh yeah, you should go talk to your CPA or they might have a brief conversation about a
Right.
Roth conversion or capital gains taxes, but they're not really getting strategic tax planning.
Hmm.
And again, same thing with estate planning. A lot of financial advisors say they take care of estate planning with their clients, but they don't. All they do is refer it to an attorney down the street or some friend relationship. And they say, oh, you probably should go get a will or consider a trust, but you go talk to this
Right.
guy down the street. And then the financial advisors say, in check, I'm holistic. And they're not. They don't know what they're doing most of the time. Don't have advanced training in it. And so that's the other big disconnect is just having a whole, I don't care if you work with us,
Right.
find a holistic planner for yourself, find a holistic planner for your parents. But if your
Hmm.
parents say, I have a financial advisor, what I would say is just go listen to this guy because they're a little different. They have a very holistic, have all the companies under one roof. They do strategic
Hmm.
tax planning, healthcare planning, income planning. Just go listen to it, and they're going to discover. They're going to see that we're different. They're going to figure out
Right.
my guy doesn't do any of that. So
Well,
just
I love that because this is just a financial and legal approach to what I see so much with people who are dealing with older parents or caregivers. You see four different types of doctors, and you see so many problems with medical interactions and problems with that because one doctor prescribes something that solves this issue, but it causes so many problems down the road. At least have it in one house, and everybody's talking to each other and knows what's going on infinitely better. What are you most excited about right now? What's really lighting you up? What are you
I
on
got to
fire
tell you
for?
what I'm excited about is as a business owner, I created a vision for my company, and we went into growth mode, and so we're nationwide. We've been around for 30 years. I think our
Mhm.
5-star Google reviews speak for themselves. I have
Mhm.
hundreds of those. But what I'm excited about is that we're been able to scale and grow the company so we can help more people. I'm
Mhm.
really I'm very empathetic. I took some assessments, and it turns out I care. So I guess I cry
Good.
at movies or something, right? I really
Right.
care about people. I want them to get this right so much that I don't even care if they work with us. I
Right.
just want them to get it fixed. And what I'm excited about is we've created, we've scaled the company to grow so we can help thousands of people all over the country. We can help people in all 50 states. And the more
Mhm.
people I can help, I just, that's something I'm passionate about or feel really good about. And the reason is
Right.
in 30 years, I know what goes wrong. I know what
Yeah.
happens when they don't do this, when they procrastinate. I'm
Right.
just so passionate about it.
You're operating nationally. We'll put the information in the notes there for people, but you have a way where people can contact your office and get a true free consultation and checkup. This is not some sort of high pressure thing or bait and switch and push them in, but it's really like you say, just, hey, you may be good, but if you're not, here are the gaps. Is that correct?
100%. We do offer a complimentary conversation. We're not here in that first meeting to sell you something. We're not going
Mhm.
to engage with you even if you want to. If you came to us with $10 million in a suitcase, we're not engaging in this meeting. It is a no
Mhm.
pressure process. It's a fact finding process whereby, if it makes sense, we're going to look at all 5 areas of that
Mhm.
holistic plan. We're going to
Mhm.
see if you have concerns in that area or if that's something you
Mhm.
might want help with. We're
Right.
going to collect some information if you choose to get back on our calendar. And we're going to have a second meeting where we're going to compare these 5 areas where you are today, if you should do
Mhm.
nothing and just stay where you are, versus if you engage and choose to work with us. And we
Mhm.
actually have advanced training with all of our team members to no pressure, no pressure. We don't apply any pressure. You'll hear us say that
Right.
throughout the conversations. We just want you to get this fixed. I was having a
Right.
conversation with one of my advisors this morning, and she's kind of in the process of shopping around. I tell people that's great. I would tell my own mom to shop around. There's no pressure at all. I just want you to get these issues fixed,
Yeah.
whether it's with us or someone else. And I really mean that.
You don't know what you don't know. And at least by having this conversation, you're going to have some questions and a few answers that are going to make you think. It's that corny cliche of knowledge is power, but in this situation, it genuinely is. So you have a time machine. We're going to go back 20, 30 years. What would you tell your younger self over coffee about this stage of life, about being an advanced adult?
Advanced adult. Um, I would that's an interesting question. There's a lot of things that come to mind there.
Right.
Because when I was 20, I didn't know what I didn't know. I would say, when I tell my 20-year-old self about if I was in my 40s and 50s, um, gosh, I'm an entrepreneur, so I'd say bet on yourself. I
Hmm.
worked at a CPA firm for a few years before I started my own company.
Hmm.
I was a jack of all trades, master of none. I bounced around for 5 years, not knowing exactly how to do this. But what I would tell you is to focus on something. And if you're talking about all areas of life, I'm a parent. I have 5 kids.
Right.
I think you learn a lot after the
Mhm.
first one and the second one.
Yes.
So I
First one's a
think
guinea pig.
I would lean on experience. Look for a great family and go to that family and go to the parents. We actually did this with
Hmm.
some loved ones. I had some loved ones that had an amazing family. My wife and I went to them and said, "How did you do this?" And we want our kids to be this way. So seek out mentors, seek
Hmm.
out people who have knowledge, regardless of what problem you're trying to solve.
Hmm.
There's so much information today, of course, AI and all sorts of things, but seek out that knowledge, get mentors, and yeah, bet on yourself. If you're not entrepreneurial, that's fine. What I would tell someone that's not starting a business, hey, bring it every day. The best employee is someone who shows up on time,
Hmm.
doesn't complain and cause chaos and spread rumors at work,
Right.
and does what they're being asked to do. That's if you're doing those 3 things as an employee, you're in the 99% of everybody. Every business owner is going to want you on their team if you just do those 3 things.
That's good. David McAdams, you're doing good work helping people out there and helping their families. So I appreciate you being here. Thanks for being on Advanced Adulting.